okay, when it comes to quarterbacks. I know Aaron Rodgers is your fourth favorite. Give me your three favorite quarterbacks of all time who you covered.
Well, hold on. Who said that Aaron Rodgers is my fourth favorite?
I made that up.
See what I'm talking about, Adam? See what I'm talking about?
I can't believe you even had to ask that question, Adam. We all knew where that fact
I will
came
say
from.
this. I will say Aaron Rodgers and Dan Marino are the most gifted throwers of the football that I've ever seen in my 35 years of covering the National Football League. The way that they both threw was special, like memorable, like pretty incredible.
Like, I'll give you
My
my
four
top
favorite-
three, Adam. Adam, my top three is obviously number 4. And then
Brett's back.
Jim Kelly and Steve Young. Absolutely love those guys.
Shocking that they all came from your era.
Yeah. But, Adam, who are your top 3 guys to cover, guys you hung with?
Well, okay. Are we talking quarterback like ratings, or are we talking about like my own personal
Your own
favorites?
personal experience with the guys. You know what? He is a really good dude.
I'm going to go John Elway 1 just because I've had so many experiences with John, and I feel like he helped professionally raise me. So I have to defer to John. I'll give the second slot to Steve Young. And, I mean, the time that I spent with him on Monday Night Countdown, I love that guy. He's
a great dude.
He's awesome. And I'm going to make my third favorite quarterback a tie. And I'm just going to say, and by the way, both Boston College, the Hasselbeck brothers together.
Oh, yeah.
How about that?
Those are my guys, too. Yeah,
You know, Matt and Tim together. I love them.
Yeah.
And there's nobody that I love making fun of more than Tim on air. Like nobody. Like even we were doing Sports Center a couple of weeks ago, and he's talking about how some of these Browns quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabe, they'll be standing off to the side, and they'll, when we don't have to pay much attention to whether they'll start until they're actually taking reps with the ones. They're standing off to the side, and he came back to me and I said something effective. Look, nobody knows more about standing off to the side as a quarterback than Tim Hasselbeck. It's like, so it's just those guys are great guys and they're great people. So I'll make them the third. And obviously, that's a very personal list just because all the quarterbacks I listed I've had extensive personal interactions with. Mm-hmm. So I've met a lot of quarterbacks. I got to tell you something. Like Peyton Manning is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Some of the interactions we've had through the years. And Tom Brady is as good a person, truly, as I've encountered. So it's hard to leave them off the list now that I start thinking about this and go through the list of quarterbacks in my mind. Both those guys, like, you want to hear an amazing Tom Brady story? I didn't tell this in my podcast that I meant to. But when my daughter she had done the ESPYs, I guess she was probably 6-7 years old. It was the first time. And it went very well, so much so that they're like, we should do this again. Let's send Dylan to an NFL preseason game and have her interview players after. And they asked for New England. So she had to be 7 years old. She's 16. So this had to be 9-10 years ago. And after the game, I'll never forget, we went to Detroit, she and I, to meet the Patriots. They were playing the Lions that night. And in the first quarter, Julian Edelman tore his ACL in the game. It was devastating. You could imagine what it would be like. And I'm thinking to myself, Dylan has no idea. Oh, my God, we got to go down to this post-game locker room for these interviews that are set up afterwards with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Oh, boy. And Julian Edelman just tore his ACL. We go down, and the video highlights still live online. They're incredible. They were both awesome, Bill and Tom. Tom could not have been more engaging and genuine and spoke to her and us for 15 minutes, hugs for her, like awesome. Well, this past Friday, I went to Fanatics Fest in New York City. Tom Brady was there. I had Dylan with me. I go over to Tom. I have Dylan. He goes like, Dylan, don't you remember? You interviewed me in Detroit. Like he remembered it. He remembered the details.
Wow.
Like that and she's like, "You told him to say that." I'm like, "I didn't tell him to say anything." It was incredible. I mean, that speaks to the kind of person he is. And I've been at like a Best Buddies event where Tom makes all the special attendees there feel so important. Like, I've watched it, I've seen it, and it's real and genuine. And he's a great dude.
Adam, in the NBA Finals with yet another Achilles unfortunately being torn from Tyrese Halliburton, like the chatter right now around the NBA is, okay, do they have to shorten the season? Players have to work harder. They're running more. They're putting so much stress on the ligaments, on the joints. And maybe that's why we saw 3 superstars tear their Achilles during this NBA postseason. Does the NFL consider that larger landscape at all as they push for an 18th game, or are they just off in their own little world? And obviously, the NFL world's a pretty big world.
I think the answer is both. I think they do consider the injury data, but I also think that they're also determined to come up with the 18 games. And I think that if there was some injury data that said to them, this is treacherous and dangerous beyond words, I don't think they do it. But I don't think any of the data has suggested to them something that extreme and significant. And so, therefore, they'll continue plowing ahead and moving forward with the 18-game schedule that the league would love to implement.
Adam Schefter hanging out with Jen, Gabe, and Chewy as he does each and every Wednesday here on 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee. Adam, what did you make of this sort of explosive claim, this explosive, podcast that Pablo Torre has done, that Mike Florio has been in on, which essentially is alluding to collusion from the league? Now, it sounds like the teams, to their credit, did not collude, but that there was this suggestion of collusion. That is the claim. Those are the allegations. This has all been it's in a lengthy podcast that these guys have done, and there was a grievance that they have talked about. What was your reaction to that development?
From a legal perspective, I think it's very interesting. The arbiter ruled that the teams didn't collude, but presented evidence that there was collusion. So, in the end, it's a net sum zero game, I guess, where nothing's proven and the teams are not guilty, even though I think what's interesting about it is just to see a peek behind the curtain of how this world operates. So, again, we're going to go by what the arbiter said, no collusion. That was his ruling. That was the final ruling. But it certainly looked like teams were engaged in shady practices, interesting messages, all sorts of things like that. But what comes of it? I mean, what comes out of that now? You tell me.
Adam, I'm just throwing this out here because I'm curious, but in NFL circles, is there any talk of expansion?
Not that I've heard, but again, I think the expansion goes back to what Gabe said, which is the schedule, the 18-game schedule. Like that's the expansion of the schedule, which would tax more people.
And going overseas, right, Adam? Like we are going to see an increase of the number of games that are played overseas as they continue to try to expand.
We're already seeing it now.
We're footprint.
Seeing, we're seeing more international games played this season than we've ever seen in a season. I think it's 6 this year. I see that number increasing, not decreasing over time.
So putting a team in London has kind of been put to bed.
Well, I don't want to say it's put to bed, Chewy. Like, I think those things are out there. I don't think they're pressing or imminent. Mm-hmm. I think eventually we could get to a spot, a time where that does happen. It just doesn't seem to be close to happening right now. Now, again, I think the league is always looking for ways to grow revenue. And if it leads to expansion, international expansion, then the league will move in that direction. I'm sure there have been conversations, but there's nothing on the front burner, to my knowledge, about that.
All right, I've waited long enough. Tell me everything. Tell me everything about last week in the Travelers Championship.
Good.
Tell me everything. You got to walk with Rory McIlroy, the eventual winner in Keegan Bradley, who won in thrilling fashion. I saw the pictures of you and Rory, got to catch a little bit of the action. You were fantastic. Tell me everything that you can about the Travelers Championship.
I actually wholeheartedly endorse this. I would love to hear. I would love to hear about how that experience was for you, Adam.
Well, Jen, I always say that anytime I'm allowed to step out of my NFL bubble that I've been in for 35 years, I find it to be refreshing and invigorating, like anybody, right? Like Anybody who goes to do something different, I think you always find it stimulating. And so I once was allowed to do NBA sideline reporting. Loved it. Would love to do more of it. Golf came up, PGA Tour Live called in conjunction with ESPN Plus. They said to me, hey, you want to do a couple of tournaments? And they asked me initially to do the Truist in Philadelphia, which was a week or two after the draft. I'm like, I would love to, but I honestly I just got back from a week in Wisconsin, the whole season, travel. Like, I'm tired. I need a little break. So we agreed to do the Travelers, and last Tuesday I got assigned Keegan Bradley and Rory McIlroy. Now, you couldn't draw a better pairing, and I basically walked in the shadows of Robert Damron the entire time, and he's a veteran at this particular job. I'm not, and I just was very concerned about stepping out of the way. But when we pulled up to the course, the first guy I see is Rory McIlroy walking into the. And I go, "Hey, Rory, stuck with me for the day. Appreciate you having me along for the ride." He just kind of shakes his head, all serious, right? Like locked in. Okay, I go to the putting green. I'm standing around there. Met a caddy from Green Bay, Joe Etter, the caddy for Davis Thompson. Had a long conversation with him on the putting green. That was awesome. Had Ludwig Oberg's caddy, Joe, what's his last name, Gabe? You would know?
No, it's not. No, Joe
Joe-
Grider's on a different bag.
No.
Joe Scovrin. Joe Scovrin.
Yes, Joe Scovrin came over, like, what are you doing here? Tom Hoagie came over to talk to me for a little bit of time. Met Tom Hoagie's physiologist who lives on Long Island, like myself. And then we were out by the driving range. We were walking with Keegan, came over, and I introduced myself before we went out. Very nice. The great part was we're following them the whole round. We get done, and afterwards they're like, you're going to go interview Keegan one-on-one. Great. So I interviewed Keegan for a few minutes, and then he stuck around, and we talked for like 10 minutes after. Just me and him. Awesome. Love the guy, right? We traded cell phone numbers. He's a huge Patriot fan. And then Rory, I went to thank him for allowing me to tag along. And we spoke for about 10 minutes. And I told him, hey, I got to tell you something. That Masters thing, I know you've heard this a million times, but I just got to tell you, one of the great golf tournaments you could ever watch, one of the great thrills, awesome. Like, hope you always remember it. Thank you for a thrilling week. Oh, thank you. And we got talking about a couple of other things, the press, the media, dealing with the media. And it was a really interesting conversation. And really enjoyed. He and I did not exchange cell numbers like he and Bradley. But I really enjoyed. He could not have been more gracious and kind. And it was, I don't know what to say, Gabe. It was an unbelievable day, stepping outside your comfort zone, and love going inside the ropes. Love being with these golfers who are so incredible at what they do. And we'll see if I wind up doing more of it in the future.
So you got to talk to Keegan. He ends up winning the tournament. Keegan's also the Ryder Cup captain later this year. Do you think he can be the Ryder Cup captain and a player? Because right now, undoubtedly, he deserves to be on that team as a player.
I don't know why he couldn't. And by the way, like with the good karma and mojo that I brought him, I don't know why he wouldn't bring me out on that Thursday as the sideline reporter again to follow him along. Like, yeah, I don't know why he wouldn't do that.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Yeah, me too. I'm awaiting his text to see if he's going to invite me out, see if I want to follow along that Thursday. I mean, by the way, it's not far from my house, so I can be out there, make him comfortable, cheer on USA, and go Captain Keegan, all that stuff like that.
Gabe just wants to be your spotter. That's it.
Yeah, if you've got an extra spot, I'm just saying. Like if you need an intern, Adam, just let me know. Like I'm there for you.
Have you ever met Keegan or Rory?
I have never met Keegan or Rory. No.
Yeah, it was a great day. It was pretty cool. Like, you did that. I did that on Thursday, all day, loved it. And then Friday, I went to Fanatics Fest in New York City to interview Robert Kraft, which, again, I've known Mr. Kraft for a long time, and Chris Webber. So it was like, that was when I brought Dylan, and she got the chance to talk to Tom Brady. So it's 2 days like that, back to back, that are just very different than things that I ordinarily would do. And so it was very, very cool. Very honored.
So you call Robert Kraft Mr. Kraft. What's the criteria for that? Is it somebody that's
No, actually, I call
Go ahead.
I call him RKK, and he insists that most people call him, and in fact, I said to him before, I'm like, hey, we're going on the stage in front of a group of people here. You want me to call you Mr. RKK? You got it, RKK. So RKK is what he goes by. And I explained that to the audience on the podcast.
Yeah. It's hard for me to like break out of some of those formalities. I work with Nick Saban. I always call him coach. He's like, Nick.
Right.
And I'm like, sure, coach. Like, it's very challenging for me to call Nick Saban Nick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I see it. Yeah.
What do most people on the set call him there, Jen?
Well, at his request, Nick. Like that's what he would prefer.
Yeah, he wasn't your coach.
No, I know, but it's a point of reference. Like, or I'm sorry, reverence rather. Like I always feel like if somebody has earned the distinction of coach, you call him coach. Same with doctor.
Yeah.
Like Chewy.
Yeah. Well, I had always called Mr. Kraft, but he's adamant that he be called RKK.
Well, then you do what he says, man. All right, Adam,
Exactly.
we appreciate you being on the show with us. Have a great week. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.